Happy opening day, Run Pure Sports. We're going to take you right through today's lineup, 7 games. We got crazy weather going on. We got a couple games that were postponed. I got DC. I got Titletown here. I got promo codes coming out the yin-yang here with Masters 50% off your first payment. Before we get into the whole spiel, the like button, the other stuff, I just want to say good morning. I didn't think that this was going to happen this soon. I really thought May 1st. The fact that we actually have baseball this early in April is kind of cool, especially we go from March Madness to Tiger at the Masters, and Major League Baseball. DC, welcome back. I know you've been waiting for this all off season, probably grinding in mom's basement. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, man. Opening day, one of my favorite days of the year, each and every year. I will say, not to be complaining about opening day, but having opening day and the Masters on the same day is a little much, right? Like two of my very favorite days of the year all year. It's like if you're a kid and your birthday is on Christmas, right? It's just too much. Like one of them's going to get overshadowed. They're going to kind of bleed into each other. You're not going to get double the presents, right? People are going to combine them all, and you're kind of going to get ripped off a little bit. I kind of feel like that a little bit. Everybody's watching the Masters, into the Masters. Of course, we are too. And then we got, an opening day that's, I'll be honest, a little bit tiny underwhelming, right? A 6-game slate on DraftKings, weather everywhere. So thrilled to have baseball back. But I do wish they were staggered a little bit. Regardless, can't wait for today. And the great thing about baseball, it's every day, right? It continues. You got multiple slates often with especially early games early in the year. So couldn't be more excited. Lots of fun stuff we're rolling out over at Run Pure Sports. Like you mentioned, promo code Masters50 will get you 50% off your first month's payment. That's not only for golf content, that's for all our content, right? MLB starting up. We got the NBA playoffs around the corner, of course. Masters, Showdown, and title. We got a big UFC card coming up on Saturday, UFC 273, 2 title fights. Going to be fantastic. So not only opening day, but just a terrific sports weekend, and couldn't be more excited to talk about it all.
All right, that's right. He said it. Our spike code this week is Masters50, 50% off your first payment. It's as simple as that. If you haven't joined already, you just heard DC talking about our MMA coverage. So 2 of our big guys right here. We've still got the NBA, the end of the regular season. The past 2 nights have been ridiculous. We had a millionaire winner. I'm having a blast. JSU just called me before. He's like, hey, dude, you don't have to do NBA tonight. You're doing baseball. I'm like, no. We're winning too much money. I'm going to sit there and hang out and just watch those guys. So you get the free up to lock shows. We have that for baseball coming up as the season. I think next week we'll start doing our up to lock show later, obviously, because we got these 2 days right here. Baseball, MMA, golf, the golf. I mean, we got the best in the world here. Our golf team is amazing. So much going on at RPS. A lot of you already know. Mr. Titletown. Wonderful to see you too. You got your Brewers jersey on. I don't know what your hat is. That really doesn't matter though. What is the hat title?
It's Salty Crew. I got it at what gas station? Man, one of the biggest gas stations in Texas. Actually, I got it. It's a huge thing. They're gonna Buc-ee's. I got a couple hats from Buc-ee's. If anyone's out there that knows Buc-ee's, I thought Quick Trip was the best gas station in the world from Wisconsin. Man, Buc-ee's, I don't even know if you can consider it a gas station, but that's where I got the hat from.
If you're ever in New Braunfels, Texas, just outside of San Antonio, there's a gas station with a Hitler bobblehead, and I haven't been back to New Braunfels since. So stay away from New Braunfels. The rest of the places sound absolutely amazing, Title. Gotta love that. Did get scared shitless when I went to that one, but nice hat. I like the Salty Crew there. Let me give you members never win, and then I promise we're going to get every single pitcher. We'll get through every single position. We're going to do everything that you want because we're going to give it to you again here, okay? Here's the deal. Members never win. They never win, Title. They never win, DC, except all they've been doing is winning lately. Big prizes nightly. Rookie B making cash. Oh, don't forget about the tennis. Susie, Matty Ice, Spread a Stare, great tennis team. Rookie be making cash, 10K in tennis. Hebrew Cheetah, I still think that is Kate Fallick, but whatever. 19,000 in NBA. Clyons, 1975, 100K in PGA. Cannot wait to see my lineup for the Masters cash. It's going to be amazing. Big T, not a member. He's an owner, 146K in PGA. Birdie Monster, 220,000 in NBA, and the man, $1 million in the NBA. And this is just the last, I don't know, week and a half or so. So members never win. Get in there. Masters 50 is the code, 50% off your first payment. DC, let's get into this, dude. We got some weather. So I want to start with that. We're going to have winds blowing out at Wrigley today, about 20 miles an hour. It's going to be gross, but that's obviously got to be a bump to the bat, right? 25-mile-an-hour winds in Kansas City, pushing out. Same thing in St. Louis. We got cold air with winds blowing out, and then the rest of the games are going to be fine, so I wouldn't worry about that. DC, talk to me first about the weather impacts for these earlier games.
Yeah, I do think all the games will play just fine. So we did have a couple postponements, right? We lost the Yankees and Red Sox in the Twins game in the last couple days. And then the Nationals and Mets game actually got pushed back. That was supposed to be an earlier game. That's going to start, I think it's 7:05 Eastern time. But it does look like that game will play fine. So the games that are on the slate, I do think will play. But these winds are strong enough to the point where you start to almost like, obviously you factor in the wind, right? It matters if it's blowing 5 miles per hour in or 5 miles per hour out, more so if it's 10 miles per hour. But you get to the winds and like what we're going to see in Kansas City, and you worry about it like affecting the actual, like all the players on the field, right? Like 25 mile per hour winds. It's like can be hard to throw strikes, right? It's cold and windy, and the pitchers could completely lose their command. So like you look at it from you see a pretty low total in Kansas City, 7.5 total, 2 pretty good pitchers in Greinke and Bieber. But like, I'm a little bit worried about those guys' just ability to throw strikes and stay on the mound. They're both relying on big breaking balls. So it does throw a wrench into things, like you mentioned. The Cubs Brewers game, not on the DraftKings slate. So that is FanDuel only. Corbin Burns. Again, Wrigley win game. It's scary, but I still do think he's the number one pitcher over all these guys. Cardinals, Pirates, similar weather to the Royals game, but a little bit friendlier, right? A little bit warmer. The winds aren't quite as strong. And once you're talking about the difference between 18 and like 25 mile per hour winds, it can make a big difference. So just something to keep in mind there. Excited to kind of talk through all that stuff with you two guys. Atlanta weather looks fine. Max Fried versus Tyler Mahle there. I think we could see Fried, one of my favorite pitchers here, and I think we could see some big offense from the Braves. Like we mentioned, the Nationals Mets shouldn't affect the game too much. It should play on time and play to its entirety. And then hot weather out in Los Angeles, right? 80, 85 degrees. Shohei Ohtani on the hill, but he's got the one of the toughest matchups going up against that Astros squad that we know doesn't like to strike out and has a lot of big bats in the middle of the lineup. And then, of course, out in Arizona, whether they play indoors or indoors or keep the roof open, weather will be good there too. So that's early season baseball for you, right? It's going to be like this a lot, where some teams have pristine weather conditions like we see out in Los Angeles. Others have got to play in weather, frankly, you wouldn't really want to be outside in. You know, Holden, you live here in Denver as long as I do, and like, I don't know if you went outside these last couple of days, but it's brutal, right? I didn't even like want to go out there on a walk and it's the same wind going across Missouri and Kansas City and St. Louis right now. So it's not going to be ideal baseball weather conditions, but obviously still happy to have it back today.
Title, how you handicapping that, or how you handling that, I should say, with all this crazy wind and stuff and dust and grossness?
Yeah, I mean, in April DFS, and then we start going to the playoffs and stuff, like the weather's a big talking point, because across the country, the weather's, you guys are talking about Colorado, how brutal it is. It was like 95 like yesterday or 2 days ago here in Texas. And obviously the ball travels better. It just helps the hitting. So weather is the first thing I pretty much look at in all slates. Every game should be played today. I'm not worried about a delay either for any pitchers. So that's good to see right away. It's an interesting slate, though. Like DC, I mean, last year, DC, you and I were on the show, too. I think all three of us did the opening day. And I think there was a ton of games. Like there's Corbin Burns, Lance Lynn, so many good pitching options, top to bottom. Felt like there was more games. This isn't the same slate as we had. Usually opening day, like there's better starting pitcher out there. Obviously, 2 games getting canceled. Robbie Ray was completely mispriced on DraftKings. So I'm kind of happy that actually happened for tournaments. I do want to say, before we get into everything, just a broad overview. I saw someone in chat say this is my first MLB slate, etc. So I just want to give the broad overview of kind of baseball. It's completely different than basketball. if you play hockey out there for DFS, if you play League of Legends, it's similar to that. It's a stacking sport. I personally stack more than, I know DC doesn't necessarily, he believes in stacking, but he doesn't believe it as strongly as I do. So you can go to DC after this and he can talk about stuff. But why stacking in baseball is important is because you can get multiple points from multiple guys on one swing of the bat. Just say you stack 1 through 4 for a certain team. Your leadoff hitter, just say he gets a single. Second hitter, he gets a double. You got runners on second and third. Your third hitter, he hits an 2 RBI single. You get that run for your leadoff hitter, the run for your second hitter, the 2 RBIs from your third hitter. So stacking a team close in this order. I mean, if you want to go 1, 2, skip 3, 4, 5, whatever, I'm totally fine with that. But unlike NBA, where you can't have 4 guys score in a single possession because you get the assist, you get the points. Whereas in baseball, they all can go together, and that's how you really hit your ceiling. You need the least amount of things to go right to get the most points. If a team scores 12, obviously a couple of those guys are going to have good games. So stacking, very important in baseball. Pitching is the easiest to get right. There's still variance in it. But like Mike Trout can go 0 for 4 any single day. Giannis has never given you 15 DK points. Jokic has never given you 15 DK points. So you can leave salary. Roster construction means more than individual players. So I did want to talk about that to start the year.
All right, let's do this. Get into the pitching, and we'll move on from there. We got DK and FanDuel. And since you brought that up, Title, real quick, the big difference between DK and FanDuel, or the big differences, DC, obviously you start with pitching because you're only using 1 on FanDuel, right? As opposed to 2 on DraftKings. What are some of the other differences between the 2 sites?
Yeah, I would start right there with the pitching, where oftentimes on DraftKings you can use, 2 mid-tier pitchers or maybe an ace and a cheaper price guy to kind of fit in the stacks or the bats that you want. FanDuel, there's usually enough value to use, kind of one of the more expensive pitchers, one of the quote unquote aces. I'm less likely to use a cheaper pitcher over there. The win is more valuable. Again, it's just more viable to go cheaper pitchers on DraftKings than it is on FanDuel. Also, the scoring systems are a little bit different, where Title talked about stacking. I agree. It is important to do that for, most of your lineup, GPP lineups, at least. I think in general, even more important on FanDuel, because runs and RBIs are weighted more heavily than they are on DraftKings. So DraftKings, you can get away a little bit with it, where like home runs and stolen bases are pretty important on DraftKings. Power speed guys can have big days, even if their teammates don't. FanDuel, though, we saw our colleague Hoop have a ton of success with it last year, kind of that 4 and 4 stack, right? 4 hitters on each of a team. Even on FanDuel, you want those guys hitting next to each other in the order as much as possible, even more so than you do on DraftKings. And then you got to nail that pitcher because you only get one of them. And yeah, you typically need one of the top scoring pitchers on FanDuel in your lineup to compete for the big prizes. Whereas DraftKings, there are slates where you can get away with having, the SP3 and the SP7, as long as they're cheap enough and you nail the big bat. So minor differences between the 2 sites, but typically, if you nail a stack on DraftKings, it's going to be good in FanDuel and vice versa too.
I'll add one more thing. Quality start on FanDuel. If you get 6 innings, less than 3 runs or less, you get pickup. I believe 4 points. I believe that is on FanDuel. So yeah, I mean, like a guy that goes 5 innings has a lot of K upside, but he might not get 6, is more valuable on DK because you do like that quality start on FanDuel. Then you get like minus for walks and hits a little bit on DraftKings, but that's not too big.
I did want to add too the correlation. Title nailed it with the, you put those guys in the order next to each other and they can all score in the same inning on the same at bat. So there's that correlation, but there's also the correlation, which I think can go a little bit overlooked, of like, on any given slate today, we have 14 different starting pitchers. Oftentimes one of the pitchers will just completely not have it, right? He's pitching hurt, or he just can't find his command. And you don't necessarily know who that's going to be before the slate starts. Obviously you try your best to identify those guys, but it's not always possible to do so. But you also get the correlation of, like, if you do happen to pick on that pitcher who maybe you couldn't see all these problems coming before the slate happened, but you want to have 4 or 5 guys against the pitcher that just doesn't have it that day, not only because they're going to beat up on that pitcher, right? And not only the guys in your stack, but the guys after your stack, right? Maybe that's the 6 through 9 hitters. but they're going to get walks, turn the lineup back over. Maybe you get 5 or 6 plate appearances. And then also teams bring in their bad relievers when they get down 5 or 6 or 7 runs. So the correlation can kind of continue throughout the game. It's not just, oh, my guy had a grand slam and, the three runners in front of him all scored. There's kind of multiple correlation points to look at there.
I'm glad you brought. Sorry, hold on. We keep going back and forth, but I'm glad you brought that up because it's not just like you said. It's not just you get to one pitcher and like there's the correlation that's over after that. They're not going to bring in their stud bullpen guys if that's the case. You get the bad bullpen, it just keeps going. They punt that game. Man, you have runs, or you see sometimes your starters going against a positional player out there in the ninth, just throwing BP, and you just get all those points, and they count for the same. So, and last thing, DK, you can stack up to 5 on a team. Whereas FanDuel 4, like the 4-4 on FanDuel, the 5-3 on DraftKings. It's not something you always have to do, of course. I mean, one guy hits a double dong, the whole slate kind of changes, stuff like that. But the typical stack 4-4 on FanDuel, you can stack 5 on DraftKings. So
we can't do it as much early in the season, but especially once we're even just a week in, and then basically for the rest of the way. Like one thing we're good at here is looking at bullpens, identifying bad bullpens, and then also identifying teams that not only is their bullpen bad, but sometimes they just get worn out, right? These teams play like 10, 11 games in a row, and you can identify this team's got a horrible starting pitcher. And I know if he gets knocked out in the first 2 or 3 innings, which seems possible, I know they're going to bring in like one of these 2 guys who are also both just terrible, right? Because the rest of their bullpen is like basically unavailable. So they're, baseball's just a different sport where you get presented fun opportunities like that pretty often.
Okay. And the last thing, just for today, on FanDuel, you have the Milwaukee in the Cubs game. On DraftKings, you do not have the Milwaukee in the Cubs game. So let's start on FanDuel just real quick with this game, DC, with Milwaukee and Chicago. I got to think Corbin Burns should be a pretty popular pitcher today. I'm not going to give the cores in the playbook out, but that's what you get right here at RPS. You'll get all our big guys, Coors, DC, Title, Hoops already has his up, JSU, BigT. These guys will be chiming in too. Gary, K. Fallick, all of our, JT Hayes. We have so many baseball guys here. It's not even funny. Well, maybe it is funny. I don't know. And then you'll get the Coors, you'll get the playbook. Gary has one today. Position by position, his thoughts, best plays, worst plays, slate strategy. So you get all that there. Guys, let's just discuss Milwaukee and Chicago on the FanDuel side, and then we'll get into the rest of the slate there. Start with Burns here, DC, and any other plays offensively from Milwaukee, Chicago as we build lineups on FanDuel.
Yeah, typically we're going to look to grab hitters when a game, Wrigley when the wind's blowing out, but it's not quite the same when it's cold, right? It's obviously a lot different when you get to the 80, 90-degree days and you get the 15 to 20 mile per hour winds blowing out to center that you see today. Again, cold and windy, like that's not ideal pitching conditions, but it's really not ideal hitting conditions. And Corbin Burns, I think had the highest upside, maybe current most talented starting pitcher. And obviously you got Jacob deGrom, but I mean, who knows if he was even going to pitch this year. But yeah, Corbin Burns, he is my SP1 on FanDuel. He's expensive, 11-2. So you want to sacrifice a little bit to get him in, but there's plenty of value out there. We'll talk about it as we go along. And so I don't feel like he is completely safe here just because the wind and the cold, but he's just so good coming out that Cy Young award, looked good this spring. And this lineup for the Cubs kind of in rebuilding mode this year, really unimpressive, plenty of strikeouts to be had in there. So Corbin Burns is my number 1 on FanDuel. I think he is clearly the highest upside play of the day. I don't think you have to play him. There are enough good options on opening day to go elsewhere, but yeah, he's the first guy in there for me. No real interest in Kyle Hendricks, just not enough strikeouts, I don't think, to get the job done on this slate. And if you wanted to grab some bats against Hendricks, I really wouldn't have a problem with it. I would look specifically toward the power in the Milwaukee lineup because Hendricks, doesn't walk guys, but he also doesn't strike anyone out. So that can lead to some good power bats. Rowdy Tellez is pretty cheap. I wouldn't mind going there. Renfroe, McCutchen, Yelich. I'm a little hesitant on him. Just hasn't been the same player these last couple of years. But the middle of that order, I think, are pretty decent options against Hendricks. But overall, I think Corbin Burns the primary play in this game.
Okay, Title. Let's talk about your Brewers here. Corbin Burns, DC likes him. Maybe you could start with the hitting side then. You like Yelich. You like Wong. You like any of these hitters on the Brewers side.
Well, the thing is, the Brewers are going to be one of the most popular teams on FanDuel. They have the highest total on the slate at 5.3. They're on the road, so you get that guaranteed ninth inning at bat. The winds are blowing out. And I mean, we're going to go opening day, obviously, the teams throw, but their best pitchers mainly. There's some injuries and stuff like that, but you're not going to be able to like pick on a bum or something. The bullpens have their arms. So the Brewers are in a good spot. But if you're telling me the Brewers are going to be like the chalkiest team on the slate, and that is a lot to do with the prices, I'm not going to eat a chalky Brewers team. Like this lineup isn't great. Kyle Hendricks is a ground ball pitcher. Like, man, like if the ball's not in the air, the wind can't take it anywhere. It still is cold. The prices, I mean, Colton Wong leading off 2.6, Adames 2.9, Yelich is only sitting there 2.3 or 3.3, McCutchen 2.5, Rowdy Tellez 2.2, like Renfroe in their 3K, even Narvaez 2.5. All these guys are cheap. That's why they are going to be popular. But in tournaments, I'm going to be underweight for sure. I am 150 in the $4 on FanDuel. I like that tournament they got over there. I'm just not going to play a chalky Brewers on opening day, really. So I'll have some, of course, in the 150. If you're making a single entry team, though, like if you play Burns, stacking the Brewers is going to be a popular correlation, obviously, because of the prices. It's easier to fit. And then, like, if the Brewers hit well, Corbin Burns gets the win. It kind of all goes hand in hand. But I'm seeing ownership on them. I play cash games in MLB still. I'll have some Brewers for sure there. But in tournaments, I'm not eating the chalk in MLB with the Brewers to start.
Yeah, I mean, they're by nothing's guaranteed in baseball, but like I don't feel that great about a Brewers stack. Sounds like you're the same way. I mean, Hendricks knows how to pitch in Wrigley Field in the wind, right? He's done it many, many times throughout his career. He's not a guy that typically gets blown up. He doesn't walk anybody. And I know he's coming off a rough year, but like he's been a pretty damn good pitcher over the course of his career. So yeah, chalky Brewers stack on opening
day. The Brewers
day.
just never excite me. Like I mean, as much as I like it, it's like when did they hang up like 10, 15 runs on a team? Like,
maybe like in Milwaukee, it's different, right? Because the ball will really fly there at times. But and maybe it will at Wrigley, but I just don't feel, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Hendricks go 5 or 6 innings and, maybe only gets a few strikeouts, but just doesn't give up many runs. It's kind of his MO. So
I would say
to fade.
I would say my favorite stack would probably be, people are going to play the top of the order. Yelich stands out. I would probably say 4 through 7.
That's what I was saying. McCutchen, Tellez, Renfroe, Narvaez.
Yep, that'd be my favorite. I'm never playing Lorenzo Cain. Jace Peterson, I know Big T likes him. I don't play him much, but yeah, the top of the order is going to get 4 through 7 would be my favorite part in tournaments.
Yep.
All right, guys, like button and ladies, like button. What do we got? 224 watching now. We just sent the tweet out so people know we're on. Let's get going. 150 likes would be nice today. So 223 watching, 58 likes. Let's try to get to 150 here. Opening day, good mojo, RPS, and we will go over to the slate at DK, where it starts with Cleveland, Kansas City, and goes right through with their slate. So DC, we'll get into pitching now. We could do pitching, and we'll start on DraftKings. You can go through the rest of FanDuel, but let's start with the top shelf. To me, on DraftKings, you've got the top shelf 8-3 and above. Darvish 9.5, most expensive pitcher here. We've got Fried at 9K and Bieber at 8.3. How many of these guys are you considering today in the top 3?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where ownership comes out. Maybe Title can speak to that a little bit more. I think Bieber will end up being popular. I assume at 8,300, kind of looks like a discount.
He'll be the highest owned.
Yeah. So 2 years removed from that Cy Young season. Now, last year he did miss, I think, a majority of the year with the shoulder injury. Wasn't quite as effective when he was on the field. Was delayed a little bit coming to spring training. I think he only pitched like a total of 5 or 6 innings in spring training. Now, his last outing did look good over a couple innings, so maybe he's found it again. But I do have hesitations with Shane Bieber just in general this year, and especially coming out of the gate. I don't think he's going to have quite the full workload. Listen, it's, we had the lockout, the shortened spring training. Like, none of these guys threw a ton of innings in the spring, so it is a little bit difficult to say exactly how many pitches they can go. But I am more concerned about Bieber than I am about Darvish and Fried in terms of working deep into the game, in terms of the pitch count. I talked about the wind in Kansas City. Again, it's really difficult to predict how it's going to affect each individual pitcher, but I do have concern about Bieber just not having his command. He is a command pitcher. He needs chases on the slider. And if he's falling behind hitters because it's just the weather conditions and he can't get ahead with the fastball, it could go south for him, I think, relatively quickly. I'm very high on the Royals this year in general. Bobby Witt Jr., I think is going to be a superstar rookie for them. They've got some good hitters kind of up and down that lineup overall. So Bieber, I play in 20 lineups. I'll probably mix him in one, maybe two, but I definitely like Darvish over Fried, partly because of the weather, partly because of coming off of injury in the limited spring workload, partly because I like the Royals. And so there's just enough there. And then partly, of course, because of ownership, right? So there's enough reasons there for me to have concern over Bieber's performance to probably look elsewhere. But we know what a strikeout monster he can be, right? And again, we just don't know exactly what these pitchers are going to look like on opening day. I have enough doubts about Bieber to go elsewhere myself. I get why he's going to be popular, but I'll be looking at some of these Royal stacks because if I'm right about Bieber kind of struggling out of the gate, doesn't have his command, maybe he's walking some guys, the Royals are going to run wild this season. Last year, they had the leader in stolen bases, Whit Merrifield, stole 40. The favorite to lead the majors in stolen bases this year is Adalberto Mondesi. I think second is Whit Merrifield. They could have the top three guys in the entire league in stolen bases. You throw Bobby Witt in there. We know Salvador Perez can mash at a rough catcher position. So if you want to get contrarian, right off the bat, I think this is a pretty good spot to do it. Get some Royals in your lineup. And again, like I said, I've seen games like this. Holton, you've probably seen them too in Wrigley Field, where the wind is so extreme that it's like just hard to like pitch and play defense, and you just see kind of crazy stuff happen. I kind of think that could happen in this game, just almost a hunch call more than anything, because it's not really reflected in the Vegas total. But I do like the Royals as kind of a contrarian stack against Shane Bieber here.
Yeah, Wrigley was my home ballpark during high school. Kind of grew up there, seen so many games there. Just because the wind is blowing out at 25 miles an hour doesn't mean we won't have a 2-1 game. Okay. Yep. There's a lot, just you can expect anything. Now, listen, did the chances go up that we have runs? Yes, absolutely. But it also, just because it's blowing out, doesn't mean it's also going to blow out the whole game. I mean, it could blow out for 3 innings, blow in for the next 6. So it gets crazy there when you're handicapping the wind, and it's not an easy thing to do, Title. Talk to me here. Top shelf pitchers, 8-3 and above on DK if you want to throw one of the top shelf FanDuel guys in there too.
Yeah, I mean, as you also said, not just like it's baseball at the end of the day. I mean, if you bet if you succeed three out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer. Like this sport is a unique out of all the other sports. Chalk's gonna bust. It happens all the time. Be prepared for MLB DFS. But talking about these pitchers, yeah, the thing with Shane Bieber, like I get what DC's saying for sure. The thing is, like, I'm looking at the other options. This is not an opening day starting pitching slate like we're used to. So I'm looking around and I'm not seeing stuff that I'm very excited about. Earlier in the year, I trust Vegas a lot. I haven't been drafting the past 3 months, studying all these guys like DC stuff. That's why I'm excited. Here's some things he says, take into consideration my process and all that. Bieber has the highest strikeout rate strikeout prop on the slate, 6.5. Nobody else is at 6.5. Kansas City has one of the lowest implied runs. There is some concern for sure. Shane Bieber didn't pitch much last year, but 8.3K, like I just can't get out of my head. I don't know if this is wrong or not. How good he was 2 years ago. He was as elite as it comes. Now he's 8.3K, 6.5 strikeout prop. And I just don't know, like, yes, there is concerns for Bieber with the short. There's concerns with every pitcher and their pitch count. I do not have a good grasp on that. I'm hoping DC can help a little bit, but like, why would you Darvish, like who's going to throw 7-8 innings, 100+ pitches on this slate or any team in the first couple of days? Like, I don't think Shane Bieber will. There's no way he does, but I don't see the other guys on the slate having the chance to go to 100 pitches and stuff too. So I'm expecting them all to kind of be around the same pitch count, whether it's 80, 85, I don't know exactly, but 8.3K for Shane Bieber, I just can't get out of my head. Tournaments, it makes sense. He's going to be chalky. I'm still going to play a lot of Shane Bieber, though, on both sides, too, because if you look on FanDuel and the pricing, too, like Corbin Burns compared to Bieber 10-4, Corbin Burns 11-2. So I guess it's not as close. I personally still lean Bieber a little bit. So I'm going to have a lot of Bieber on DraftKings for sure. My second favorite, you just said 9. You didn't say all the pitchers. You just said 9K and up or something. Yeah,
we'll go down next. I'll run through the next tier of pitchers.
I was gonna say because Max Fried's sitting there, or he's 9th. Yeah, run down the next tier.
Yeah, so let's go with the next one. So yeah, Max Fried was actually in that top tier on DraftKings because he's 9K. So you got Darvish, Fried, Bieber. Then you go down to that 7K range. Up top at 7K at 7.9 is Framber, Tyler Mahle, Tyler McGill, Scherzer, DeGrom, McGill opening day, Wainwright, Brubaker, and my boy Ohtani-san. Can you help me out with Ohtani-san here? Why not go with Ohtani at 7K today? Is he not going deep enough? What's the deal here, Title?
Yeah, so I have a little interest in Ohtani. The thing about Ohtani is, and I know DC, like, you just don't like picking on the other squad, and that's Houston today. Their lineup's very good. It's been good. They're always a tough out. It's warm in LA. It's going to be what, I see 85, 90 degrees, could even be above that. When you can see other spots on the slate, we're in the 50s and stuff. So I get the Ohtani, his strikeout prop sitting there at what, 4.5 minus 163. The thing with me is, like, I like SP2, and I'll just get right into that. It's Adam Wainwright at 7.5K. Man, I know it's 2022. I'm playing Adam Wainwright, but this Pirates lineup might be one of the worst lineups I've ever seen for opening day. What Vogelbach's doing in the 4 or 5 hole, like, what is going on with this? Brian Hayes, Brian Reynolds, you get through them. This lineup is cheeks. The weather, it's fine. Like, I am going to play a lot of Adam Wainwright. And he was good last year. Like, the man just knows how to navigate through lineups, especially a very poor one. So Bieber Wainwright is my favorite pairing. Like, I'm looking at Zach Greinke, 5.7K. I'm seeing some ownership there. I'm not playing Zach Greinke in tournaments at 5 points. I don't care. I like Jose Ramirez a lot. We'll get to them. I'm not playing Zach Greinke there. Yes, the Ohtani, I think is fine. You Darvish, I'm not going to go there. I actually think Arizona could be a little sneaky. And then Max Fried at 9K. You have to have some consideration in him. Good pitcher. I expect them to get the win. I like the Braves bats there too. So Bieber, Wainwright, Max Fried, and then Ohtani is how I'd rank my 4. And I always keep my player pool pitching pretty short. You can't play 9 pitchers, so I'm going to cap it off there.
This has got to be the worst opening day pitching slate.
It has to be.
It has to be. Like, I didn't go back and look, but
there's no way it's not. There's no way.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, it has to be this. I feel like it has to be the smallest one too. Obviously,
yeah,
we got 2 games canceled, but it's never like this little
Good
games.
job, by the way, Title of DC. Good job by Major League Baseball to have one nationally televised game today, and it's on cable. One for fucking opening day.
Also, why do they schedule games in Minnesota and the East Coast in the early April? It's like, I counted today. If you count all the domes and then like all the, West Coast and there's like 12 or 13 stadiums that will be basically totally safe to play in. It's like, why are you scheduling games?
Yeah, why is it in Wrigley and not Miller Park or Park or American Family? Yeah.
Well, same with the Mariners and the Twins. You could have just played them in Seattle where they have a dome. It makes no sense.
Yep.
We're not need to go on and on about it, but just it would be more fun if we had. I mean, and man, the Mets, they had to be all excited signing Scherzer, thinking they're getting DeGrom healthy. DeGrom's already shut down, I think, probably till June at the earliest.
Oh,
Scherzer supposed to be nothing with a hamstring, but I mean,
he's old.
So actually,
we started seeing the arm go a little bit toward the end of last.
A little bit, and he's just such a gamer that he kind of like fights through it, but eventually he can't do that anymore. So we'll see with the Mets. Hopefully he bounces back. I love watching him pitch. But yeah, back to the pitching on this slate. No problem with the Bieber Wainwright pairing, but like, you would think you would have a bevy of aces to choose from on opening day. You wouldn't think you'd be going with Adam Wainwright, right? Who's one of the lower strikeout guys in the league. I don't mind it. I mean, you get obviously the fantastic matchup against what I think is the worst offense in baseball in Pittsburgh. St. Louis also has the best or second best defense in the league, that big park in St. Louis. So even though with the wind's blowing out, you got to think Wainwright will be safe here. And he's another guy that's like, obviously a veteran of all veterans, knew he was probably going to start opening day on this staff, for the last couple of weeks. So he's one that you would expect to be kind of ready to go and get close to his full workload. I don't think we'll see anybody throw 100 plus pitches, but if Wainwright's cruising, I think he can throw 90,
He's the one I feel safest about too, come pitch count.
Yeah. So again, I don't think Wainwright's going to put up some massive score. It's not really what he does, but I think what you're probably thinking is you probably don't need it from your SPs. I don't think
you look at all the pitching today. You do not need big boy scores with this.
No, like 20 fantasy points on DraftKings. Sign me up.
I'd take even 15, 16.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what Wainwright's kind of a master at giving you. So I get that. Like Ohtani definitely has more upside. I mean, you could see Ohtani striking out 10 plus guys. It's not going to happen for Wainwright, but man, you don't know what to expect from him either. He's another guy that had to ramp up both hitting or the only guy who had to ramp up both hitting and pitching in the shortened spring training. And then the matchup's tough, and he's the only guy that really has to pitch in the good hitting weather. So those are the kind of the drawbacks to Ohtani. I get the Bieber play. I do have Fried number one for me. Again, I think he didn't pitch a huge amount of innings, but he knew he was going to be the opening day starter for a couple weeks now. And I think he probably did what he needed to do to be prepared for this day. The Reds obviously traded some of their big bats away. The weather in Atlanta looks pretty good for pitching to me. 60 degrees, which won't affect Fried. It's perfect to pitch in, but also the ball's not going to be flying, which can be a danger in Atlanta. So I do really like Fried. And then I like Darvish too. I think for most of my lineups, I'm going to be paying up for those top two guys, the two highest priced guys. I do have Darvish and Fried over Bieber. And there's plenty of value to be had, right? So it's not that $700 difference from Fried to Bieber, to me, doesn't make a huge difference on this slate. So I have Fried 1, Darvish 2. I guess I would put Bieber 3, but I'll probably have less of him in the field. And then Wainwright, Ohtani, and then the last guy that I'm looking at, partly for leverage, is Patrick Corbin, coming off a horrific year for the Nationals. I think you're going to see a lot of people go to some of those Mets bats, guys like Pete Alonso, JD Davis, guys with a lot of power from the right side. I get it. I like those guys too. Corbin, very home run prone, but potentially a bounce back year from Corbin. He's had the slider rolling in spring training. I think he's finished second among all starting pitchers in swinging strike percentage in the spring. And he's just a guy, it's like if he has command of the slider, he can rack up the strikeouts in a hurry. He's very cheap, 6,700. I'm seeing perhaps below 10% ownership, and you get leverage against some of the highest owned bats on the slate in Alonso and Davis and some of those other guys for the Mets. So I see in tournaments a decent argument to roll with Corbin. Could completely backfire. I wouldn't go all in or anything like that, but if you're playing multiple lineups, I would get a sprinkle of him. He'll be on some of my lineups for sure. I definitely like him over Bumgarner and Greinke, who might be safer, but I think Corbin's the one with the upside. Greinke just doesn't have the strikeout upside for me to roll the dice with him.
Okay. Very good. Let's continue here. So are we done with pitching? Can we say we're done?
Yeah, I'm glad. I was going to ask about the Bumgarner and Greinke for DC. He mentioned Greinke. I'm personally like the leverage. I think San Diego's going to be the most popular too. I like the Bumgarner over Corbin, but it's the same reasoning for DC. Getting leverage on a lot of unknowns in opening day. Mets will get ownership. Padres will get some ownership. So if I'm playing like 150 and DK, I think throwing in some Bumgarner or a Corbin makes sense from that aspect.
Honestly, you can make a case for all of these pitchers. I think outside of, I wouldn't use Tyler Mahle, but I mean, he's not a bad pitcher in his own right. And then
well, what do you think McGill's like? How many, I think the bullpen, they're going to use a lot of the 3 innings?
No, I actually really like Tyler McGill to have a good season. I liked him last year.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm just not sure he's quite stretched out enough to be in consideration today. Is my big worry, because obviously they were planning to start DeGrom and then Scherzer after that, and then it's been kind of a new thought. Yeah, so it's hard to know with McGill. He would be on the list for me, but he would be 6th or 7th today.
So we're gonna get to the offense. Before we do that, like button. We're sitting about 300 watching, 92 on the thumbs up. Probably get another at least 30 minutes in the show today. We'll take our time, get through it. But give us a thumbs up there. We need that. Also, the code, as you may or may not see on the screen, I don't know if it's up there because I can't see the screen, Masters 50. Masters are going on right now. Tiger actually parred his first hole. Masters 50, 50% off your first payment. That's a great time to get in for Major League Baseball. Obviously, we'll be doing shows. We got the playbook. You get all our guys' cores. You'll get videos. You get premium videos. We also have podcasts. DC does the podcast still. JT Hayes is doing stuff. So we got that. NBA. Last year, I would say right around this time, maybe our most profitable sport last year. I'd have to go back and look. But between the playoffs and then the showdown content on the NBA side, killing it. Tennis, MMA, it's all going down right here. Run Pure Sports Masters 50, and then give us a like. when you see that too. DC, we'll go down the catcher position first. What's the plan of attack today? I can't remember. We haven't worked in a while, so on baseball. Are you a pay up a catcher guy, a pay down a catcher guy, throw them in your stack? What is your strategery? And then what do you think of the position today?
Yeah, as often is going to be the case, catcher kind of rough today. There's not a lot of guys that you're excited to play. In terms of the strategery at catcher on any given slate, I think it can really vary, because sometimes you'll see one catcher just stand out way above the field in particular, one of the catchers on today's slate, Salvador Perez. I'm not saying he stands out today in this field as being the top option, because he's got a tough matchup against Shane Bieber, and the weather's not great. But there are times, right, when if he gets a bad lefty in a warm weather game, it's like, man, he's just so far above the field. You don't see that very often at most of the other positions. So not today. I don't see any catcher that really stands out, but sometimes you'll see that. And when that's the case, I have no problem paying up for it. But there are slates like today where there isn't a guy that truly stands out, and maybe you want to go with one of the cheaper options. So I don't have a problem with Salvador Perez. Again, I do like the Royals. Probably not going to stack the Royals without including Salvador Perez right in the middle of that lineup. But it could be hard to go yard in Kansas City today. Obviously, that's where he does most of his damage, so that's a little bit of a concern for me. Other guys I'm looking at, Keibert Ruiz. He was the big return for the Nationals in the Trey Turner and Scherzer trade that sent those guys to the Dodgers. Rookie, I guess maybe a sophomore catcher here, but I do like him. 3,600 on DraftKings. Think he's a good option. I expect big things from him this year. And then if you're not on Darvish, I do like Darvish quite a bit, but Dalton Varsho for the Diamondbacks. So he's catcher outfield eligible. You don't see that very often. He's actually going to be their everyday center fielder. I think he'll hit leadoff today against Darvish. He's also got power and speed. So Darvish, really good pitcher, but he does give up home runs and he does allow stolen bases, two things that Varsho can do. So if you're not on Darvish, Varsho would probably be my choice down there at 3,200. He'll get some leverage against the field, who I think will use Darvish quite a bit. And even those who don't might not want to pick on him, but I do think he's the best Arizona bat and one of the best catcher plays. So Varsho guy I'm looking at along with Salvador Perez. And then I do like the Braves as my favorite offense overall. So Travis D'Arnaud, 3,900, I think a decent option as well.
So I was throwing no action. All right, let's do this title. Catcher today. I was looking at Max Stassi just a little bit because of price. If I'm Angels, that'd be about that'd be the one guy that kind of stands out to me. Salvi's back. Maybe he hits 40 home runs this year. Talk to me, catcher. Give me a couple of names.
I mean, how I approach catcher a lot of slates is whoever I'm stacking, I just kind of throw that catcher in there. Right, wrong, I don't know. It's just like, yeah, Salvador Perez, 40 home runs. You don't see that very often from the catcher position. So your stack goes off. You hope your guy hits a single. You have runners on base. You fall into some easy points there. So if you like stacking the Angels, Max Stassi, absolutely. Austin Nola for San Diego against the lefty. And Bumgarner, I think he makes sense. I do think Dalton Varsho is going to probably have the most ownership at this position. I think it's interesting. I have a little interest in the D-backs. We know Darvish can be hit around. He's going to have some ownership. I think it's really interesting if you play like Dalton Varsho in outfield, which no one's going to do. Of course, everyone's going to plug him in at catcher if they play him. And then you played someone like Carson Kelly with Arizona's 4K, and you stack Arizona that way. Nobody's going to do it. Just little things like that in baseball to get different in roster construction. But Dalton Varsho is a good baseball. Like he's got the goods. So I think he's a very strong play. The last guy I'll add, James McCann, if he starts 2.7K, crushes lefties. It's Corbin. I like the Mets. I'm not on Corbin today. But yeah, if you're playing Pete Alonso, you're playing Lindor, JD Davis, stuff like that. Throwing a catcher into the thing, James McCann, who has power, I think you can do a lot worse than that. So I like that. And then DC mentioned Ruiz. I'm not familiar with the guy. I like the Nationals lineup this year. So it looks like he's going to be in the 5-6 hole, something like that.
Yeah, should have fifth, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, 5 hole in between a lot of good guys, I think he'd make some sense too. Catcher, if you're stacking a team, I like throwing the catcher part of your stack.
Okay, Tyler, I'm going to come right back to you. And we'll just run through the whole first base position. If you're paying up today, boy, 5,700 for Matt Olson on DraftKings with Goldie right behind him and Votto at 5,100. A lot of mid-tier stuff. I know Luke Voigt, maybe, a new place. He's in San Diego now at Arizona. Talk to me here. And Christian Walker too, who I feel, Christian Walker's more of a, let's play him against the lefties. So title, first base.
Well, someone did mention Christian Walker in chat. He's 2.6K. If you're playing Arizona, he has pop. I think it's fine. The one that stands out right away is Pete Alonso, 4.8K. It's obviously going to have some ownership, but man, like how he profiles one of the best plays on the slate. I think he goes deep against Corbin. I like the Mets in this spot. 4.8K if you have the money for sure. You look at one of the most popular teams on the slate, the San Diego Padres. They acquired Luke Voigt. He's only 3.5K. He's going to be popular on both sides. Like you don't play a Luke Voigt one-off if you're not playing San Diego, though. That's just not something you do in MLB. If you're playing the Padres, I think Luke Voigt makes a lot of sense at 3.5K, but I'm not one-offing him for sure. Looking at a couple other guys, yeah, like Matt Olson, no one's really going to play him. He's very expensive, 5.7K. I like this Braves lineup too. He's going to have a really good year in Atlanta. Lots of homers are coming. So I think getting on board early, Wainwright's pretty cheap. There is some other value on this slate. I think you can jam in a Matt Olson. That's going to be contrarian. So I definitely like that play. But yeah, I think Pete Alonso, Luke Voigt there, Christian Walker if you're going down at 2.6K, or like you said, Matt Olson up top. I'm not going to give 8 plays at every position. I'll keep those at the 4 right now. Every single price gap. You get the 2 guys up top, Olson and Pete Alonso, the mid-tier Luke Voigt, basement diving, Christian Walker.
All right, let's go. Let's do this. Do you agree or disagree or like anybody a title brought up here? DC, and who's your play of the day at first base?
Yeah, I think you nailed most of first base. I do think Pete Alonso will be most popular. You certainly get it against Patrick Corbin, someone people like to pick on. Can't really argue with it too much. But I am kind of leaning just in tournaments the Corbin side of that matchup. But I totally get why Alonso is going to be so popular. Luke Voigt, I mean, traded to San Diego, the dude crushes when he's healthy. Going to be hitting cleanup. I'll disagree a little bit with title just because Luke Voigt does so much of his damage through the long ball. I could see Madison Bumgarner pitching okay and Luke Voigt getting him once and then maybe getting a reliever. So I think you could play him alone, but I do get in general why he would say that.
More so the ownership a little bit too.
Yeah.
Like he's going to come with some. If he was 5% owned, I think that'd be a lot easier.
I'll say like I won't often play kind of like singles hitters, right, in the middle of a popular stack. But Luke Voigt, one of the players,
you want that 14.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you can do that. Olson, like if you look at the numbers for Tyler Mahle, he was really good on the road away from Cincinnati last year, and he's also very good against lefties in general. So if you look at the numbers, the Braves maybe don't grade out the best if you buy into those, but I just have a hunch the Braves are going to do some serious damage coming off that World Series at home, good hitting weather. So I do have Olson as the top option for me. Hopefully he goes a little bit lower owned, like Title mentioned. And then last guy that I don't think you mentioned, Title, Josh Bell, who does have big power, especially from the left side. We like Tyler McGill some, but obviously any pitcher can be hit. Tyler McGill's not an ace or frankly that close to it at this point. So yeah, Olson, Alonso, Josh Bell, Voigt, and then I do like Christian Walker. If you're not on Darvish, Walker coming off a very strong spring. He's in form right now. We'll see. Obviously, we're not buying into spring training too much, but listen, I'll take the guy who was crushing it in the last week before we go live over a guy that kind of coming into the year scuffling a little bit.
All right, let's do this again. Promo code D-Rock, Masters 50, and then the like button would be great as we're sitting at 114. Maybe I went a little low on the likes. All we need is 150 though, and then the great mojo will come. We've got about 300 watching right now. This is wonderful. Tell your friends, tell your wife, tell your animals to watch because you all count. Anyways, DC, let's go back to you here. We'll do some second base action. Altuve against Ohtani. Altuve is the top spend up here at 6.1K. Ozzie Albies, we'll see if Johnny India can bounce, can really build upon his amazing year last year. Ketel Marte's facing a right-hander, so I don't want to mess with him. So talk to me here about the cheap guys. Is there a way to get a little different and save some salary at second base, or is it a spend up today, DC?
I think you can go either direction. I'll talk just the Astros in general. We can kind of talk about them here while we're talking about Altuve. I do think they're an interesting contrarian stack because they're super expensive. They're not going to have any ownership. But like we mentioned, they are one of the few teams that has good hitting weather today. And we do see Ohtani just kind of blow up at times, right? Where he just doesn't have it. They pull him early. And the Astros have a really strong lineup. So I wouldn't use Altuve as a one-off, but if you're stacking I do think the Astros are kind of a sneaky, very, very low on stack. So that's kind of what I have to say about Altuve and the Astros. I do have Ozzie Albies as the top option here. Again, you do prefer him from the right side in general, switch hitter, but a good enough player overall that, again, Braves my favorite team to stack today, and Albies certainly a guy I want to include. I think you could use either India or Ketel Marte in that $4,800, $4,700 range, depending on, again, on kind of who you're pitching. I do like Fried and Darvish myself, but if you're not on those guys, India and Marte are two of the better hitters to use against those pitchers. And then, like I said, I'm kind of going to go to the Royals here and hope that Bieber just doesn't have it today. Whit Merrifield, I think, going to lead off. Yeah, he'll lead off against Bieber. He's seen Bieber plenty of times. I think they might be able to get the stolen bases rolling and perhaps do it as a team. And then if you need cheaper options, like you mentioned, Holden, I think we will see Cesar Hernandez leading off against Tyler McGill. He's 2,900. A cheap guy leading off. Again, not a ton of power, but can't go too wrong there. And then we should see Nick Senzel in the lineup for Cincinnati. He's 2,300. Been injured like 3 or 4 years in a row for the Reds, but at one point he was one of the top prospects in baseball. He does seem healthy now. One of the better hitting environments and super cheap. So Nick Senzel, if you need a punt, I think would be the guy for me against Max Fried.
Oh, Nick Senzel action. Okay, let's do it, Title. We're already over here at second base. Do you want to pay up for Altuve or go Albies or anybody else up there? Or do you just go somewhere else?
Second's pretty gross. I'm leaning paying down up top. You like that phrase? I'm leaning paying down. If I'm paying up, it's Ozzie Albies at 5.5K. Outside of him, I just don't see myself I like Bieber, so I'm obviously not going to play Witt. I'm not picking on Ohtani, so I'm not going to go all the way 6-1 for Altuve. So I don't love the position. I think Albies perfectly fine if you can get him at 5.5, my favorite. Otherwise, man, like in MLB, you can win GPPs with a 0. So that is worth noting. I don't like the position. So Cesar Hernandez, 2.9K for sure. He's batting lead. He's probably going to be batting lead up. I think Washington's a little interesting. He makes sense at 2.9. Also, if you just want to full punt it, I know I talked about Wainwright and liked him a little bit, but this Hoyt Park, expect him to bat leadoff. I don't like the Pirates at all. Again, you can win with a 0. Maybe it's 2 singles, gets a walk or something at a position that I really hate. Getting away with it at a min price guy, 2K. You can move on. Nick Senzel's right there, 2.3. I'd probably, because I don't want to pick on Fried, I'd probably go the Hoyt Park route, but I am not liking this position like a Matt Duffy 2.3. I don't want to play Matt Duffy. So Cronenworth's the other one, 4.2K. It is lefty, but it's with the best team in the Padres on the slate, or one of the most chalky. You can play him at second base. I think he's fine too. So Albies up top, Cronenworth in the middle, Cesar Hernandez, and then Hoyt Park is a full punt if you need.
All right, we got some interesting stuff at third base here because the pricing's different. Jose Ramirez is 4,300 on FanDuel. He's the top priced one. He's the second top priced on DraftKings. So we're looking at Ramirez 5,600.
Oh, hold on. Sorry about it. Vogelbach's leading off. It's not Hoyt Park. Hoyt Park's batting 9th. Vogelbach is leading off. What? So I'm not playing Hoyt Park. What are the Pirates doing with the biggest stolen base upside in the world batting leadoff? I don't know.
That is walks. They're just trying to get people on base.
Vogelbach's going to take walks.
Yeah, walks.
He'll be striking out, walking back. He'll be walking back to the dugout. I promise you that.
Vogelbach would look like he was in good shape at like a DFS convention, but he's for the major leagues. He's not your. Let's say he's not your prototypical leadoff man. I think that's it.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Big Bertha or Vogelbach?
I mean, that's a good. I don't,
They're
I
a
don't
match
know.
made in heaven.
Yeah,
Let's hook them up.
Yeah, have babies and everything like that. That'll be
Yeah.
wonderful. Royals lineup is out, just so you know. Whit Merrifield at the top. He's playing right field. Bobby Witt Jr. So we got Witt at the top, Bobby Witt Jr., Benintendi, Salvi Perez, Carlos Santana, Dozier, Mondesi, Michael A. Taylor, Nicky Lopez. I don't think too many surprises there. Hoy Park season apparently in the chat today, so that's wonderful.
He's 9 instead of 1, but I mean, it's still 2K at a bad position. I mean, you weren't excited.
Give me a third base rundown here. How much Ramirez and Bregman are you interested in? Or is it just go a completely different direction and hope that Bobby Witt Jr. has a monster game?
Well, the thing is, I see chalk right away. It's Manny Machado. It's 4.8K against a lefty and Bumgarner. That's where the ownership's going to go. If you're playing San Diego, he's a good play. It's baseball, though. He easily could go 0 for 4. Nobody would be surprised. So Jose Ramirez, I mentioned it earlier. I mean, he is just such a stud. One of my favorite MLB DFS players to roster. Has the stolen base upside, has the power. Just a really good hitter. 5.6K. It is expensive. It is against Greinke, who's going to get some ownership. So don't expect the ownership to be much. Definitely my favorite spend up on this, or spend up at the position if you're not going Machado. Outside of that, I'm going to be looking in the lower range, and it's JD Davis at 2.6K. As DC mentioned earlier, he has power. I'm like picking on Corbin. Those are the only 3 guys I'm going to play at the position. Jose up top, Machado in the middle. Otherwise, it's JD Davis.
Ooh, JD. Hey, DC, what do you think of JD Davis?
Yeah, I mean, he crushes lefties, big power from the right side, and a matchup against one of the most home run prone pitchers in baseball, in Patrick Corbin. So it's hard to argue with JD Davis at 2,600. I do think you'll have high ownership, right, Title? We're predicting high.
Machado is going to be the highest on that. I think the other guys are going to be lower than what they should. I think because Machado's
this position's pretty strong, so I do think you'll see ownership spread out. Again, JD Davis looks like a good play. Bobby Witt, who you just brought up, Holden, rookie for the Royals. I think he's going to be an absolute star, like a 30-30 type player, going to hit a second all year. 2,300 against Shane Bieber. I get the matchup's not great, but you do get the leverage against what we think might be the highest owned pitcher for a stud who is just massively underpriced. I think you'll see Bobby Witt be a 5K plus DraftKings player by the end of the month. Honestly, I think he's that type of talent. So
who's gonna be better in the future, Wander Franco or Bobby Witt?
Witt, especially in fantasy, he's going to be like Wander Franco's going to have he's going to be like the super high on base percentage guy. So he'll rate well in terms of kind of what actual teams are looking at. But Witt is going to be by far the more explosive fantasy player in terms of power and speed. And I think the better overall player anyway. But yeah, I love Bobby Witt. I'm going to take him at 2,300 when I can get low ownership on a player that, I think a lot of players have heard of him, but not everyone follows baseball, right? And knows to pick a cheap player against Shane Bieber that they've never seen play before. So I like Bobby Witt there. The other guy that I really like, again, I'm probably going to go off the beaten path a little bit, especially at this position, is Austin Riley. I talked about the reverse splits for Tyler Mahle. For any new baseball people, reverse splits just means that a batter or pitcher does, for a hitter, better against the same handedness of where they swing the bat. So Austin Riley swings from the right side. Tyler Mahle throws from the right side. Typically, hitters do better against the opposite-handed pitcher. But last year, Riley was one of the biggest reverse splits guys in the majors, crushed right-handed pitching. And Mahle himself was worse against right-handed bats. So you put the two together, it looks like a sneaky good matchup to me for Austin Riley for my favorite stack of the day. So Riley and Witt mostly for me, but I totally get it. Jose Ramirez, Manny Machado look great. Adalberto Mondesi, I think I'll have some exposure to. You can play him at shortstop as well, hitting 7th, but again, power and speed against Bieber, who I wouldn't be surprised to see him struggle. So deep position here, but I do like the contrarian options myself of both Bobby Witt and Austin Riley.
Love Bobby Witt. What do you have? 33 home runs, 29 stolen bases. So he's got power and speed.
And I'm in like 120 games as a 2020-year-old. So yeah.
Yeah, he's 21 now. 937 OPS. I love him, and I don't know how much he's going to be. I don't know how long he's going to be priced here. So
not long.
I will be happy to take a stab on a little Bobby Witt Jr. today. Yeah. So before we get to our final position and the plays of the day, Like button would be great. We're looking for 150 today. Get the mojo going. Good mojo doing this free show for you. MLB will be back tomorrow as well, also at 11 a.m. Eastern. So today and tomorrow, let's get to 150, 308 watching. The numbers will be nice and big by the time things are gone or the show is over, and we'll get ready tomorrow. So Bobby Witt Jr., I'm all excited now, DC. DC, let me read off a couple things here, and then I want to get your thoughts. Top shelf outfielders. We'll start with this.
You don't like the shortstop position?
No, we're going to skip over that because I do that every year or every day. I always skip shortstop.
It's day one. We're already skipping positions. Come on.
Yeah, we just don't worry about shortstop. Whoever you play today at any price is going to work out. Thank you, Title. We'll go back to that. So anyways, like button is great. How about you subscribe to the YouTube channel here for Run Pure Sports? We're sitting at what, 8.3. Oh, we just went up another 100 over the last week. So 10K, 10,000 YouTube subscribers. Hoop's going to throw a big party on the air. It's going to be awesome. Bottom right-hand corner, subscribe. And welcome back to everybody here. Baseball-wise, I see Stevie Boynton in the chat. Wonderful to see Stevie again. Some people that we haven't seen during NBA or haven't seen since last baseball season, even NFL, in the chat. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Great to see you all here. Let's go. I guess shortstop, since Title wanted to call me out and talk about a position. That's so easy, Title. You know, come on. All you do is just plug in whoever you want. But really, who are we playing here? DC at shortstop. What's the plan of attack?
Well, I get why you skipped the position. It is a rough one. I'm not super excited to play most of these guys. I think, Title, this could be one where you probably want to include the shortstop in your stack, right? Whichever way you're going, just because nobody stands out as a fantastic individual.
I always do that with bad positions. I think this is a position to do it with. Yep.
Yeah, general strategy point. If you don't like a position overall, try to get them around other players on the same team in your stack is a good way to do it. But, you know, talking individual plays, I do like the Mondesi play. Again, was hurt most of last year, but just a awesome fantasy player in terms of upside, power, and especially speed. 4,900, hitting 7th against Shane Bieber. I don't think many people are going to want to pay that, but I don't have a problem with it at a bad position. Dansby Swanson, another guy. I think he's probably going to be hitting 8th or 9th today. No one's going to want to pay the 5,200, but the Braves are my favorite offense. The Mets, if you're on the Mets, Francisco Lindor coming off a rough first season. Remember, he signed that big contract with the Mets before last year. Wasn't good. He was smashing in spring training. I believe he finished with the second most barrels behind Bryce Harper in spring. So looks like a potential bounce back season for Lindor. Gets a good matchup against Corbin. And then if you do want to punt the position, which I think is a decent way to go, the Houston Astros have a new rookie shortstop, Carlos Correa, now on my Minnesota Twins. But Jeremy Pena, again, I think he'll be hitting lower in the lineup, but an impressive hitter in his own right, going to be the everyday shortstop for Houston. Tough matchup, of course, against Ohtani, but 2,300 for a player whose skills I do believe in, and a guy that maybe goes a little bit overlooked as well, right? A later game today. I know it's a shorter slate. People just might not kind of be aware of him, especially if we get that lineup a little bit later. So if you need a punt, Jeremy Pena, 2,300, the guy I'm looking at.
Title.
Three guys for me. Francisco Lindor up top, 4.6K. Corbin, we talked about it. You're saying 2 Holden. Paul DeYoung, 3.9K. He has power. Pitching is Bruda Baker, I don't love picking on him, but on a slate like this, I think it's fine attacking him. Pittsburgh's bullpen's also bad. That's just a team I'm going to like picking on. So I think he's fine at a bad position, 3.9. Then, yeah, Jeremy Pena. I see Steve Boynton talking about him in chat. DC's hyping him up. That's when you listen to sharper guys more than you. Very cheap at a bad position on a good team. Sign me up if you need to go cheap with him.
All right, good. So let's just go straight to the outfield then, Title. We'll do a little switcherooski here. And are you going to pay up for one of the big guys? I mean, whether it be Soto, Trout, Yordong, who's the highest price guy you would consider today?
Well, they're easier to play on. I should say this. On DraftKings, you see Mike Trout at 6'2", Juan Soto at 5K. So they're just telling you who to play there. On FanDuel, they're closer, and the salary is always easier. So you can play a stud easier on FanDuel than DraftKings. I still like Juan Soto at 5K. man, he's just so good. If you want to play the Josh Bell, you want to play Cesar Hernandez, who's cheap. Like the stack for Washington, the more you talk about it, the more it just works pretty easy. So I think Juan Soto's the guy up top if you need. I mean, like, I just don't see myself. I don't one off a Mike Trout at 6'2" on this slate. So I'm not going to get there myself. But man, like, would anyone be surprised if he's 4 for 4 today with a bomb, 2 doubles and something? He gets the lefty. I think he's a strong play. I'm not going to get to him today, though. I think Starling Marte is interesting at 5.1K at the top of this order for the Mets. I like the Mets already. I think he's the piece that gets overlooked a little, and he has a lot of upside. So I would probably say in tournament, Starling Marte is my favorite spend up in the outfield.
Ooh, who's your favorite spend up in the outfield, DC?
I think Soto, but I assume he'll be kind of the more
He'll be
popular.
owned.
Yeah. I have no problem whatsoever with the Marte call. Again, I do think Corbin's got a shot at a good game here, so I'm kind of leaning that just for game theory reasons. But yeah, Starling Marte needs to be on the list. So do both of the Houston Astros. Again, I do like them as a sneaky stack. Kyle Tucker, Jordan Alvarez. I know Otani's a good pitcher, but these guys smash, and we're talking 85 degrees in Los Angeles. Wouldn't be surprised if the Astros broke out for a big day on opening day here. I wonder if Mike Trout goes a little bit overlooked title.
I think he does.
Partly because of the expensive price tag, partly because we didn't see him for the last 3 months of last year, and partly because he's still got, at least on DraftKings, the little red DTD next to his name for an illness. But it's like, I don't know. It's like we didn't see him last year. He's right next to Acuna, who's actually out, and Buxton, who's postponed. And maybe people just kind of scrolled past him at the top. Obviously, if you're doing lineups, with the optimizer or whatever, which a lot of people do, that's less likely. But if you're hand building, I could see a lot of people just scrolling past Mike Trout and looking elsewhere. Matchup's not perfect. Valdez throws so many ground balls, which you don't like, but it's freaking Mike Trout, and we think he might be lower owned. So I'll have some exposure there for sure as well. I do like all 3 of the Atlanta outfielders who are kind of in that mid-range. I rank them Eddie Rosario, Marcelo Zuna, again, another guy coming back from domestic violence stuff, but he's going to be the cleanup hitter for the Braves. And then Adam Duvall hit like 35 home runs last year. Again, right-handers handle Tyler Mahle just fine. So the Braves, my favorite offense overall. I think all 3 of those guys you can play. It's close between them, but I do have it Rosario, Ozuna, Duvall if you're going to the Braves outfield. Talked about the Royals. I do like them. Andrew Benintendi in the middle of that lineup I think is fine. Unlike shortstop, there's just a lot of guys you can go to, but I do think you want some upside here. I think this is a position where at the end of the day, you're going to want, 15 plus, 20 plus DraftKings points, whereas like a catcher or a shortstop, it's possible nobody hits a home run at those positions, and you might be able to get away with an 8 or 10 or something like that. Outfield, I do think you need some upside here.
Let's go down a little farther then, DC. I mean, is there anybody really mid-tier, really low-tier?
Yeah,
Do you
couple cheap guys.
I got one guy, Tyler Naquin.
Yeah, lefty on lefty against Fried. Probably not going there. He's a guy I like using when he's got the platoon advantage against the righty, but I get the call. The 2 cheap guys that I'd be most likely to play, I did talk about Nick Senzel a little bit earlier. You can play him at second base or outfield. He's 2,300. And then Joe Adell for the Angels won the starting job. Was so impressive in spring that they DFA'd Justin Upton, just let him go, and they're going to hand the reins, it looks like, to Joe Adell out in the outfield. Tremendous power, speed, massive talent. Really hasn't come through for him so far at the big league level, but most prospect evaluators or whatever think it's just a matter of time for him. It looks like he might be putting it together. 2,500 for Joe Adell. Maybe you pair him up with what we think might be a lower owned Mike Trout for a sneaky Angel stack out in LA today.
Title, how do we want to round things out here in the outfield?
Yeah, I like the Joe Adell call for sure. Will Myers is staring me in the face, 3.4K. He has pop. It's against Bumgarner. I think that makes sense. Nelson Cruz's price, he's only 4K. I like Washington's order. I think he has a lot of upside at 4K. That price stands out for sure. There's also Trent Grisham right there. It's lefty though, but you're getting exposure to the Padres, who have the highest implied total on the DraftKings slate. I wanted to ask DC, what's the report on the Steven Kwan guy? It looks like he should be batting about 6. I like picking on Greinke a little bit. I like Jose Ramirez. Talk about him a little bit. I think he's interesting.
He was actually the guy I was going to bring up when it got back to me, and one guy that I did overlook. Yeah, he's a massive contact guy. I think like a Luis Arraez, but with a little bit of power and a little bit of speed. I think he was the only player in spring training when 30 plate appearances, didn't strike out a single time. So, he's going to put the ball in play. Yeah. So great, kind of almost like a cash game staple, right? The guys that are going to put the ball in play somewhere, and you're likely to get some points eventually. So yeah, Stephen Kwan, 2,200, really good option if you need the savings at outfield.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'll bring up one other guy. It's I don't even know. You mentioned 3 outfielders for Atlanta. There's DH, but what about Alex Dickerson? He from the Giants. He's 2.8K. He gets the platoon advantage today against. I mean, I think he's interesting in a good lineup for someone I like. Probably near the bottom of the order, but don't be afraid in MLB DFS to stack 5 through 9, stuff like that. If you want to go 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, the wraparound stuff, like don't just go 1 through 5 and expect to print. I like looking at some good hitters in the bottom of the order. Alex Dickerson stood out for me too.
No problem with that. I do think he's the one guy in the entire Braves lineup that probably comes out when a lefty comes in. I think the whole rest of the lineup stays in there. So for that reason.
So two at bats, I don't want that then. So
I mean, and he might not. They could bring in a right hand. They don't have a ton of left-handed relievers, so but it's just a risk I probably won't take when there's so many good outfielders I like.
I like Stephen Kwan too. Hit a dozen home runs, less than 300 at bats. Might even get you a bag. So I like Stephen Kwan there. Any other players we want to touch on before we get to our plays of the day, guys? And want to remind you, we're 8 away from our goal of 150 likes. So let's get that going. 331 watching. We'll have well over 1,000 views.
David Peralta is the last one. You asked for anyone else. If I mentioned some Arizona guys, there's Christian Walker. If he's hitting 3-hole, you can pick on a little popular Yu Darvish. He has some pop. And it's one of the games that you don't have to worry about weather. It's in a dome or the roof's. I think Gary said the roof's open, but regardless, it's not going to matter. So
that entire Arizona team is like all like 2K or 33,000.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right, guys, let's get to the plays of the day. Like button's great. Subscribe, little red button, bottom right-hand corner. Again, if you're a subscriber, get in the Discord. Our MLB guys will be helping you out building your lineups as we get closer to lock here. But Mom's basement play of the day is who we have to start out with. DC, where are you going?
Not a Mom's basement player, but definitely a Mom's basement price. We're going to third base. Bobby Witt making his MLB debut. I think he's going to have a huge season. We've talked about him at length, obviously, during the show, hitting second. I get the matchup's not perfect against Shane Bieber, but I'll take the savings, the massive talent, and then I think much lower ownership than he should be as well. So Bobby Witt Jr., the Mom's basement play of the day.
Yes, Mr. Title. What's the name of your play again?
I'm going to say it and you're like, oh yeah, Esso.
Esso.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Only watched that damn NBA up to free show. How many times? And I can't remember a goddamn Esso. All right, Title. Who's your Esso play of the day?
I'm going to go with Starling Marte. The Mets are my favorite tournament stack. I think he could be overlooked a little. He's getting some ownership, but we're kind of like baseball and golf ownership. Like you don't have to worry about ownership nearly as much as you do in the NBA. I like the Mets. I like Starling Marte. I think he has a lot of upside. I was debating going that Kwan route too, since I do like Jose Ramirez, but I know I'm going to stack the Mets in a good majority of lineups. On the road, you're guaranteed the 9th inning at bat. Starling Marte, the SO play of the day.
I'll give you my play, and DC mentioned him. I just love Joe Adell on DK at 2.5. His birthday's tomorrow, first of all. He's only going to be 23 years old. He's still a baby. He's had 2 cups of coffee in the bigs. Hasn't been anything very special, but don't forget, he was the top prospect in the game. And I think he comes out and figures it out this year, and he's going to be a big part of that Angels lineup. So save some money today. Throw a little Joe Adell. I don't hate the Astros or the Angels line. I know that they might not be too popular today, but there's some bats, man, with the Angels besides for Ohtani and Trout. You
can play Stassi at catcher. We talk about a bad position. If you're playing them, you just throw that a little mini stack. You can throw Trout, even though you're skipping like a Rendon or stuff. Like you go Trout, Stassi, Adele. I think that makes total sense.
Well, Rendon is 3,200 and looks healthy now too. I mean,
he's 3,200. We missed that. Then yeah.
Dummy lineup. It's funny you say that because I got Stassi.
Oh, no, he's 4,700. I was looking at the wrong site, but yeah.
I got Stassi at 3,400, Rendon 4,700, Adele 2,500, Trout 6,200.
There you go.
those are the Angels guys that I liked yesterday. So maybe we'll just stick there. Again, like button on the way. Hey, you got to 150. Thank you very much. We really appreciate that. Dwayne called Joe Adele early this AM. All right, Dwayne, you beat me to it, man. I should have been following you on whatever social media platform you were on, but make sure you let me know. Great stuff. We're back, and we're going to be back again tomorrow at 11 Eastern. I hope everybody has a great day. If you haven't already, check out the bet side. Joey Work is back. Over 40 units 2 of the last 3 years. The only reason he didn't do it 2 years ago is because there was COVID, and he didn't have enough gains to get there, but he was on pace definitely to get to 40 again. So make sure you get over to the bet side. Get Bets is a code. I think Get Bets. Yeah, Get Bets. So 25 off if you want to add the bet side, okay? DC, good to see you. Title, good to see you. We will be back with some NBA up to lock tonight. So Big T is going to be on there. The Tone Dog, of course, with myself. And maybe Glock will join us. Somebody else got to join us tonight. That'll be good. For DC, for Title, MLB Simon behind the scenes. I'm holding Simon. Get us out of here.